I want to bring in two gentlemen that know exactly what's going on. Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, he is the former Undersecretary of Defense during the Bush administration. Eric Stakelbeck, he is a GBTV contributor and the author of The Terrorist Next Door. Okay. So we're going to meet. We're going to get with the UN, and we're going to meet, and we're going to talk. If that doesn't work, we might issue a letter or something. Haven't I seen this movie before, General?
You sure have, Glenn. In fact, all they're doing is stalling. If you wanted to stop an Israeli strike, can you think of a better way than going to the UN and saying, let's bring the world together and let's talk? This is nothing more than a delaying tactic. They will not slow down on their program. They're going to continue building a bomb.
Well, I mean, it honestly, it goes to exactly a prediction that I said, I think, in 2006 or 2007 when I said, there will come a time when the world will be on the verge of peace. We're going to we'll solve it. And then those Israelis will come, and they'll strike, and it'll be Israel's fault.
Yeah. But don't worry, President Obama says he's not bluffing now, Glenn. So everything's going to be okay.
Oh, he's not bluffing?
He's not bluffing.
Okay,
he really means it this time.
So this time he's not bluffing. That means he's coming out and shooting straight, that he's on their side, or what? I don't.
Exactly. When you have to reassure your enemies that you mean business, you're not bluffing, you're probably bluffing. I think that's
right.
rule number one. So look, I think at the end of the day, Glenn, I was at Bibi Netanyahu's AIPAC speech the other night in D.C., and a forceful speech. And basically he laid the groundwork. Look, we're going to do it. This is why we're going to do it, why Israel is going to strike Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. When I left the building that night, Glenn, I talked to a few different people. We said, look, obviously he's going to do it. The only question is when. It seems like the timetable
Well, the White House says it's spring. I mean, General, have we ever done this to an ally before?
No, when Leon Panetta made that pronouncement, the March, April, May timeframe that they would strike, I was shocked by it. And I must tell you that to do that to an ally is unprecedented in U.S. history, I think. We would never expose what we knew about an ally's intentions. But I think it reflects sort of the attitude of the administration that they want to delay this as long as they can, particularly until after the election.
Okay. How far away do you think Iran is?
Well, according to American estimates, according to Leon Panetta, our own defense secretary, Iran may have a nuclear weapon by the end of this year. That's our own administration, which does not want to take action. So when they're even saying that Iran is close, I believe they are very, very close.
General?
I have a different view, Glenn. I believe that Iran has a nuclear warhead now. No, that's going to shock a lot of people. But they've been working for 25 years, and they've had the assistance of North Korea as well as the Russians. You don't work for 25 years without succeeding in the development of a warhead. What they don't have is they don't have the ability yet to match that to a delivery system, primarily a missile, an intercontinental ballistic missile. But I can't give you the facts and details, but I think that they have a weapon now. Even if they don't, the estimates range in the ballpark of enough material to build from 1.5 to 4 nuclear warheads right now, just based on what they've already done. So as far as I'm concerned, I agree with Eric. I think that Netanyahu laid the marker down. He has made his decision. I think that that red line is approaching very quickly. And regardless of these discussions and talks and negotiations with the United Nations and the Europeans, Israel is left with no choice.
Yeah, and Glenn, we've talked about time and time again on this show. 2012 is the year of reckoning. This is it. This is when it all hits the fan.
Well, I mean, the 12th Imam, I mean, here's the conundrum the Iranians are in. They've said that 2012 is the year that the 12th Imam returns.
That's
now,
right.
I don't believe in the 12th Imam. You may not believe in the 12th Imam. But people over here will say, oh, well, they don't believe in it either. They're just telling their people. Well, hang on. If they're telling their people that this is the year that he returns, and they've said, I've spoken to him. I've counseled with him, right? So the 12th of Mom is counseling with me, and he told me this is the year he comes back. And the only way he can come back is to be wash the world in blood. You get to New Year's Eve, and you're in 2013. Now, if the media is right and the experts are right, oh, they don't believe that. They're just telling the people because the people believe that. They have no credibility. So which is it? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. The world has to be in bloodshed and chaos for the Mahdi or the Messiah to return. And I agree with
But as a war
what you
gamer,
just said.
help me out. How does a politician, let's say he doesn't believe it. Well, he doesn't believe it. But he's telling them that I've met with the Mahdi. How does he have any credibility the next year when the Mahdi doesn't come?
Well, he doesn't. Obviously, he doesn't.
So that makes him even more desperate.
Listen to this, though, guys. That hasn't, in a way, that hasn't deterred them, the Muslim world in general, for the past 60 years, because part of their theology is Israel is a blot. It should not be there. It should not exist. It should not be in the heart of the Muslim world. Yet time and time again, the Israelis defeat them against overwhelming odds. So what is Allah doing here? Why do we keep losing to these Zionists? So as much as they lack credibility because their prophecies don't come true, they're stubborn and they're going to keep going at it,
So what? Give me scenarios here of what happens to the Middle East and the world.
I think that I'd be shocked, Glenn, by the end of this year if Israel doesn't strike. And I say that because, look, if Obama gets reelected, my gosh, he will have no constraints in a second term. He will bare his fangs against Israel, and all of the venom will come back. There will be no restrainer. He'll make it impossible for Israel to act in a second term. So they have to do it before the election. I think, look, the Middle
agree
East...
with that, General?
Yeah, I do agree with that. And to answer your question with regards to what happens, I think that there's a reign of terror that will be unleashed on Israel coming out of South Lebanon from Hezbollah as well as Hamas out of the Gaza Strip. With 200,000 rockets and missiles, they will fire everything they have on Israel. So the Israelis are going to then have to address those two targets. I think that they'll try to shut down the Straits of Hormuz, which will jack gas prices up. I think the rising cost of oil...
Hang on just a second. Let me just say, study has just come out and said if the Straits of Hormuz is closed, oil prices $440 per barrel if it's the same as it was, if the same kind of conditions are present as the OPEC oil crisis back in the 70s. So it's $440 a barrel. That puts gasoline between $10 and $15 a gallon.
Well, they can't shut the Straits of Hormuz, but they can certainly impede the flow there. The U.S. Navy will reopen that. But it doesn't matter. It's still going to raise oil prices, off the scale, and it's going to be a world economic crisis as a result of that.
I think Netanyahu made a good point the other night at his AIPAC speech. We're talking about gas and oil prices. He said, look, yes, they will rise if a war breaks out in the Middle East. But if Iran gets the bomb and blackmails OPEC and sets the price of oil globally, they're going to rise even more. Iran wielding a nuclear weapon is a gun to the Saudis' head and all those Gulf sheikhs to their heads, saying this is going to be the global price of oil. We're setting the market price.
Remember that the movements over in the Arab, this was the year of the dictator. 2011 was the year of the dictator. 2012 is the year of the kings.
Yep. Right.
That's Saudi Arabia, that's Jordan. So anybody who is even halfway friendly, and I don't think Saudi Arabia is friendly, they're not a friend of ours. Oh. But they're at least more friendly than Iran is. And that means they're out of the picture. Mm-hmm. And they hate Iran. That's some balance of power there. If this is the year of the kings where they go bye-bye, we're in trouble there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see a new episode, the next level of the Arab Spring, I think, coming soon. Yeah. And as you said, this is the year of the kings. That's the whole Gulf region. That's Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. They're the next targets.
You say that there's the sleeper cells. Can you explain, General, the Bubba effect? You know what the Bubba effect is, don't you?
Well, I'm from North Carolina, so I know who Bubba is. But,
Okay, it was described to me by some former members of Special Ops as something that the government was concerned about, and that is something bad happens,
yeah.
and Bubba says, "Oh, it's these Muslims," and he goes shoots an Indian who's not Muslim. He's wearing a headdress, and it just, you know, it's a nightmare. The government comes down. Let's just even say he was Muslim. He comes down, the government comes down to arrest him, and when the government gets there, then all the other Bubbas stand around and say, wait a minute, you're the people that allowed this to happen. You've known this the whole time. We've been shouting and telling you. You're not arresting him. Even though he's wrong, it's what's happening in Wall Street. It's what's happening in Greece right now. I saw it. I talked to the people there. I asked them, these people are burning down your streets in your country. This is the central bank. They're helping you go broke. Which one's worse? They said they're both criminals.
Yeah.
That's the Bubba effect. What happens in this country if there starts to be retaliations, and you're also going to have our own Nazi elements, people who don't like the Jews here? I mean, the Blaze just did a big story on all of the Nazi elements in Brooklyn. It's bad. What happens to us?
Glenn, I speak all over the country. There are groups all over this country that are expecting the exact scenario that you just talked about, because they come to me frequently and say, when do we take up arms? When do we go to war? And my answer is always the same. You don't. You don't. You prepare for the worst, but you don't take up arms against your government. But this is occurring all over. When something like this occurs, you are going to see these groups come out of
so how do we,
everywhere.
How do we prepare? I just did a monologue earlier today. Martin Luther King. You've got to be Martin Luther King. The pressure is, that's what this government wants. They want that pressure cooker to get people to rise up so they can clamp down.
Yeah.
How do we teach people? What do we teach people right now to do? Any takers on that one?
I always say be educated, be prepared. Be prepared for any contingency. That doesn't mean you're going to take to the streets and start firing and go Bubba, but be prepared, be cognizant, know what's going on, and I think that's be involved, get involved, join grassroots activities, join GBTV, get involved, be aware, and at the end of the day, guys, and we talk about this a lot,
It's God.
God sits on the throne, man. God is in charge. Have faith, trust in God. As bad as it gets, He will provide.
The other thing is this: vote. Get in behind candidates that get it, that understand this.
Do you see a candidate out there that could solve this?
Well, I see candidates at, not necessarily at the presidential level, but I see candidates at the lower levels. Glenn, I think we're going to take America back from the ground up.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to do it in Washington, but if communities will get informed, as Eric said, if people will find out what's going on and get away from the mainstream media, get away from the television programs that tell you the same thing every time, the same ones that will not tell you about a guy trying to blow up the Capitol, you know, a 3-hour coverage, and then it's on to Whitney Houston. Get informed, but use other sources of information. This is a great source of information, this and the Blaze and other things. And there are other outlets that give you what's going on in America. Get informed first, and then get in behind candidates that understand this. Support them. Put your money behind them, your time behind them, and vote for them. If you don't vote, don't complain.
في تعليم الناس حقيقة الإسلام، وإنما الناس يعني لا تفهم الشريعة كما ينبغي. إحنا في حاجة إننا نعرف الناس أحكام الشريعة ونبينها للناس قبل كل شيء، ونقعد مدة نعرف الناس. أنا أعتقد إن ال5 سنين الأولى دي ليس فيها قطع يعني أيدي ولا أي، لابد فيها من التعليم والبيان وهذه الأشياء، فترة
مرحلة انتقالية.
All right, let's spend a few minutes on what's coming. What's coming?
Well, we were talking during the break that Al-Qaeda has issued statements already, Glenn, saying that this 2011 was the year of the despots, the secular fascist dictators in the Middle East. This year is the year of the kings. And I believe Saudi Arabia will be in the crosshairs, and I believe Jordan, especially King Abdullah, will be in the crosshairs. If you look at what Abdullah is doing right now, he feels it. He's reaching out to the Muslim Brotherhood, talking about sharing power with them. He's reaching out to Hamas, welcoming them back into Jordan. Keep an eye on Jordan, right on Israel's borders, and Saudi Arabia. It seems like if
Saudi Arabia falls, correct me if I'm wrong, Saudi Arabia falls, especially, Jordan falls, Israel is done, and so is the United States, and Western Europe is now beholden to Russia. The rise of Russia becomes huge because they have exploited their resources. They are ready to pump oil all over the world. They ain't going to pump it to us. They'll pump it to China. They'll pump it to Europe if they're beholden to Europe. And we are where? I mean, if Saudi Arabia falls, as a strategic thinker, General, Saudi Arabia falls, they cut off the oil supply. How long does America have to fight? How does she fight?
Well, John Wolford wrote a book in 1974 that talked about this called Armageddon, Oil, and Terror, where he says we will reach the point that we will not have the energy to go to war. And that's exactly what will happen. If we lose Persian Gulf oil, and then if Chavez was to cut off our oil coming out of Venezuela,
of course
we could not fight. We couldn't reopen the Persian Gulf.
Could we protect the homeland? Do we have enough resources here to be able to protect the homeland enough? I mean, we don't even have a president that would even understand it. Could we?
We have enough resources here to be energy independent for centuries, probably. But we don't.
No, I mean access. I know we do it under the ground.
Right.
Do we have access to be able to? No.
No.
So, I mean, Russia and all of our enemies who have all of that.
It's our Achilles heel, Glenn, is our dependence on foreign oil.
Okay, so let's just say in a year from now, do you think the world will be at war?
I believe the Middle East will be at war with, I would say as a betting man, by the end of 2012, we're going to see something in the Middle East. I believe this is the year of reckoning for Iran's nuclear weapons program. And the interesting thing here, guys, is everyone says Israel is going to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. I believe Israel will. I believe they're going to do it. I believe they have no choice. But I also believe that Iran might get this started off by instigating a proxy war on Israel's borders and strike first.
They're full of bluster right now. They see the weakness around the world and the anti-Semitism.
It's not bluster, and you know, even Jim Clapper, a man who I've been very critical of in the past, among other things, for saying last year in testimony to Congress, it's just a secular group that has eschewed violence. But he said yesterday, before Congress, that Iran is now preparing for attacks against the United States, may think it can do them. One of the things you've talked about on the show, I know, in the past, and that I think we better be thinking about in this context as well. You asked about, you know, the security of our homeland. One of the things that the Iranians have repeatedly said in the person of the president is that not only they want to wipe Israel off the map, that's what it is, but that a world without America is not only desirable, it's achievable. And I've thought a lot about this, as I'm sure my colleagues have. There's only really one way I could see them doing that. And unfortunately, it's a way we've watched them preparing for. If you take a missile...
Don't say EMP.
...and you launch it over the United States, and you detonate it with a nuclear warhead outside the atmosphere, you can crater this country, as you know, and as you've talked about.
I know.
But here's the
100
thing.
million dead in the first 6 months.
What you've heard from your guests, from the Director of National Intelligence, what your own common sense is telling you, what the Iranians are telling you. Not only that they think taking us out is achievable, but also that 2012 is the year the Mahdi will return. This messianic figure. So you put all this together. If you want to ask where we'll be a year from now, I'm with these guys that there's a war on.
Okay.
I don't know where, and I don't know whether we're
Have
in
you
it,
heard the reports?
but it's not going to be good for freedom.
Have you heard the reports that, you know, the Iranians, when they were launching the missiles, they were blowing up in the skies? Remember, they were launching the missiles just recently,
Okay.
and they were blowing up you know, before they
Seem to be failing.
They seem to be failing. So you saw this? Did you see this?
Yeah.
Where they said, it depends on what the failure is. It depends on what you're trying to do.
Right.
When I saw that, I thought, that's EMP.
That could well be.
You don't want, you don't have it coming back. You blow it up here, not here.
Here's another thing to keep people up at night, Glenn. Our own Pentagon, we haven't given them enough yet. Our own Pentagon issued a report in 2010 saying that by the year 2015, Iran may have intercontinental ballistic missiles that can reach the east coast of the United States. Within 3 years, those missiles will be nuclear tipped. We are the ultimate prize. Israel is a bump in the road. We are the ultimate prize in the great Satan. We need to wrap our heads around that real quick.
But they don't have to wait to get a missile that can range us from their soil. They can put missiles, and they've tested the capability of doing this on ships.
I know.
And firing them from there. And
That's the real, to me, that's the real threat, because they have said they were going to do that. Remember, what was it? Yeah. Within the last 6 months, they said, we're sending into the Strait of Hormuz, and we're also sending to the coast of America. That should have been a wake-up call to everybody.
Lots of wake-up calls here. We're not awake because we're determined to see no evil, to speak no evil, to hear no evil, especially from our leaders.
I want to show you guys something. I'm collecting the, David Barton is collecting all of the great things about America. I think it is important to collect some other sides, because I feel like I've watched enough old Perry Masons where he comes in and he says, are you telling me absolutely everything? And the guy's not. And you're like, don't, because it's going to really go badly for you. You know what I mean? That's what we have to arm our children with. Are you telling me everything about my country? Are you telling me everything? Because otherwise they're going to get blindsided, and you will not be able to restart it. It will discredit everything, and they will go, wait, well, I didn't know that. No. When somebody says, do you know that about your country? Then you say, oh, yeah. Oh, no. Let me tell you what it really was, and have the evidence of what it really was. I brought two things in. General, you might actually appreciate this. This is the first and only edition from 1945. You recognize, not the Zimbabwe dollar, you recognize this? Made by us. This actually has pictures of Elie Wiesel. The day I purchased this, I didn't realize that Elie Wiesel was in it, and I had lunch with Elie Wiesel. This is what our allies came in and said, look at what you've done. Look what you have done. And it's, I won't open it, but it is pictures of the concentration camps. But this is us. This is a book called Without Sanctuary. This, there were only a couple of copies made of this. Nobody ever wanted to buy or own this book. And it has sat unwanted for a very long time. It is unwanted in my library, but it is something that we have to remember. And it is called On Lynching. And it is, I won't open it because it is horrific, but they are pictures that were made into postcards of, for instance, there's one picture of a man on fire hanging from a tree with American family standing right in front of it, smiling with their children. The man's on fire hanging from a tree, and they're smiling with their children. And it says, we had a great barbecue today. Wish you were here. The things that Americans have done in the past are horrific. And unless we recognize the things that men, including Americans, are capable of, we will never be able to fix ourselves. We'll never see it coming. If you say, oh, well, that's crazy, those people over there won't do it, well, they're doing it now. And don't tell me that this kind of stuff couldn't happen in America, where we target and isolate a certain group, because we've done it before. And so have the Germans. It doesn't matter. You're just switching. The infidel is somebody, always somebody.
Man's capacity for inhumanity to man is not to be underestimated.
It is.
And when you add on top of it what we've been talking about throughout the program, that people can rationalize being inhumane to others because it's God's will, according to their construct. whether it's in Iran that is bringing back the Mahdi by triggering the apocalypse, or whether it's the Muslim Brotherhood that is driving the Jews into the sea, or imposing Sharia on all of us, or whether it is somebody else who's taking advantage of these circumstances. You mentioned Russia. You could throw China in the mix, the Venezuelans. You've got a world that is full of hurt and could get a lot worse. And if I may just put in a plug, we did just today up in Washington, Glenn, an analysis of what it's going to entail for our economy at the state, county, city, and business level when these defense budget cuts come through. And it's horrific. It's a study you can find at forthecommondefense.org. But quite apart from the economic impact, what the national security implications are of what the Obama administration is doing in the face of this real and present and growing danger it's beyond simply
obscene.
Reckless.
Oh, yeah.
It's horrifically irresponsible.
Some might take it farther than that.
Well, the other thing, though, is, Glenn, that what this Arab Spring, I think, is also resulting in is a huge power struggle that ultimately is going to bring about change in Turkey. Because Turkey wants very much to be the center of the caliphate as it is being established, and as does Iran. And we are going to see a substantially different Turkey, I think, a year from now than we see today.
Can I make a quick point about Turkey? Recep Erdogan, the Turkish prime minister, viciously anti-Israel, but a NATO ally, as we speak, viciously anti-Israel guy. Other than David Cameron, the British prime minister, President Obama talks to Erdogan more than any other world leader.
Good God.
That is his guy, and Erdogan is basically advising our president on the Arab Spring and telling him what a good thing it is and that Islamist movements are innocuous and harmless. He's our go-to guy on Middle East policy, a raving Islamist who hates Israel. That's the president's phone pal.
He is the guy who said that Turkey will be head of a caliphate, isn't he? Hasn't he in the past, not recently, but I think in the past
The Muslim Brotherhood, when Erdogan went into Egypt about 3 months ago, he was welcomed by the Muslim Brotherhood there as the new leader of the Islamic world and therefore the head of the caliphate. The Muslim Brotherhood recognized him as such.
In 1998, Glenn, he was actually locked up in Turkey, locked up because he made a speech saying, mosques are our barracks, minarets are our bayonets. And now he's the president's phone pal.
Can I just add, that's frightening. And you're absolutely right.
You're going to make it worse.
The strategic implications of having a NATO ally that is actually leader of this Islamist enterprise is really troubling. I'm at least as worried that the president's regular consultant on matters involving Islam in the United States, as well as foreign policy towards Israel, for example, is Mohammed Majid, a man who is the imam of another of these Wahhabist Virginia Islamist radical Muslim Brotherhood mosques in Northern Virginia, the Dulles Area Muslim Society, Adams Center. He also is the president of the largest Muslim Brotherhood front in the United States, the Islamic Society of North America. And again, don't take my word for it. In this Muslim Brotherhood strategic plan, the Islamic Society of North America is listed at the top of a list of what is called organizations, our organizations and organizations of our friends. It was also found to be properly listed as an unindicted co-conspirator in this Holy Land Foundation trial by not one, but 4 federal judges.
Same with CARE.
Same with CARE.
Okay. You guys depressed the crap out of me. I mean, geez, I mean, I can be pretty.
To know.
I know, but I could be.
You wanted to raise
not
the
this
alarm.
much.
You wanted to be the watchman on the wall.
I know. So the blood's on your heads now. Give me a way out. Give me a way out.
The first is
Okay,
to
don't
know
all
what you're
jump
up
into
against.
once. What?
The first is to know what you're up against.
Right.
To recognize Sharia as a threat. as about power that we
But you
can,
don't have
that we can
anybody
counter,
in the you
that
don't
we
have
can counter.
you don't have anybody in the administration. You don't have anybody in the media. You don't have you don't have the military willing to say anything. You got nobody.
You've got a couple of presidential candidates
Yes,
who
you
have
do.
held themselves out as alternatives to the present president. Not that they're necessarily going to be the nominee for the Republican Party, but they have been, Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum, have been very explicitly warning Sharia as a threat.
I will tell you
must
that
be countered.
I spoke to, because I agree with you, Newt Gingrich is strong on this, and so is Rick Santorum. But I will tell you that 7 years ago, I talked to Mitt Romney, and I asked him, and I thought, this was my gotcha question for me. This was not, you know, nobody should have known this, 7, 8 years ago. And I said to him, hey, do you know who the 12th Imam is? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he, chapter and verse, he knows who the 12th Imam is. I think we have, except for Ron Paul, all of them understand what's going on here. All of them.
I conversed with him about that time, not quite that long, and I got him to the point where he was very clear about jihadism and the threat that it represents, and that's important. But if you don't get what is impelling jihadism, which is Sharia, you get to the situation that you were just asking Jerry Boykin about, which is, our military is finding it hard to think about who is the
So
enemy.
you don't think that he gets that?
I worry that he hasn't made that
Have
next leap.
you talked to him recently?
No, I talked to him the last
I haven't talked to him recently either.
Someone I trust.
If you do, you call me, and if I do, I'll call you.
Waleed Ferris, who's a friend of ours, who's great, is advising Romney on foreign policy, which is encouraging. Real quick, guys, we're looking for signs of encouragement. Look, let's be honest. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and things are about to happen in the Middle East. Mitt Romney's going to have to be well-versed because things are about to unfold in the Middle East. They're going to make people forget all about the economy.
Whole world can change by this time next year. We could not. There's a possibility that you wouldn't even have the ability to see us a year from now. So the whole world could change in a year, or even sooner. It could change tonight. General, a word of optimism?
Well, I think that the 2012 election is an opportunity for us to change the direction of the country. I wouldn't say who I'm voting for, but I have certainly supported and endorsed a candidate. But I will say what I said on your program last time. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a nation to turn back to the one who created this country.
I will tell you that I have, just like these gentlemen, and I've done less work than you guys have on this, I have racked my brain to first understand it, sleepless nights trying to figure it all out, and when I did, try to beg for an answer. I will tell you the only answer, and this is one of the reasons why I'm here, because they don't like this on mainstream television, is God. That's it. Only turning back to Him and doing the right things according to Him. He is begging us, get behind me, come on, just get behind me. I'll take care of it, just get behind me. A lot of pain coming, but miracles are coming as well. Please, we have 178 days, our countdown to restoring love. And this is a gathering of people of all faiths who don't mind speaking the truth and actually not talking about it, but doing it. Actually, love is a verb, using love as a verb and getting involved. Make sure you join us. Check it out at mercury1.org. Tonight from the news, the real news from The Blaze, we'll keep the conversation going on Iran. A panel of experts look at the important things like the strategy of Iran, how it's plotting against us, and how big the threat is to the U.S. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, right after this program. Then see how Frank and his family are making out as they live life off the grid. Don't miss an all-new episode of Independence USA, 8 p.m. Eastern, only here on GBTV. Thank you so much for watching from Dallas and New York. Good night, America.